The wrench slipped from my greasy fingers and clanged against the concrete floor of my auto shop. Midnight again, working on Mrs. Henderson's busted transmission, while my wife Reina enjoyed her late client meetings downtown. Felix Rourde, that's me, 42 years old, owner of Rourde Auto Body, and apparently the world's most oblivious husband. At least, that's what I thought until 3 weeks ago when everything changed. The shop felt different that night. Maybe it was the way the fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting weird shadows between the car lifts. Or maybe it was the text message that had been burning a hole in my pocket since dinner. Working late again tonight. Don't wait up. R. Short, efficient, just like everything else about my wife these days. Reina Caldwell Rourde, corporate attorney at Morrison & Associates, the kind of woman who wore power suits like armor and treated conversations like cross-examinations. We'd been married 15 years, and somewhere along the way, I'd become just another item on her to-do list. I wiped my hands on a shop rag and pulled out my phone. The family tablet sat on my workbench where I'd left it earlier, forgotten after checking the weather forecast. Reina always synced her devices, a habit from her legal work where everything needed backup copies. What I found there changed everything. The message thread opened with Dylan Pace's name at the top. Dylan, the pretty boy junior associate from Reina's firm. 28 years old, drives a BMW, and apparently has been driving my wife crazy for the past 6 months. Can't wait for tomorrow night. Felix will be at his boxing gym until 10. My stomach dropped like a stone through water. Perfect. I've already booked the usual room at the Riverside Inn. Room 237. The usual room. How long had this been going on? I scrolled up, my hands trembling slightly. Months of messages, hotel bookings, calendar invites disguised as client dinners. Location sharing that showed Reina's phone pinging from addresses nowhere near her office. But the message that really got me was from last Tuesday. Dylan, I've been thinking about what we discussed. Felix is comfortable, safe, but I deserve more than safe, don't I? I deserve passion, excitement, someone who appreciates my ambitions. Dylan's response made my jaw clench. You deserve everything, Reina. Felix is holding you back. When are you going to tell him? Soon, but I want to handle this smartly. I'm thinking about proposing an open arrangement. He gets to stay married to me, keeps his little shop, and I get the freedom to explore my options. Best of both worlds. And if he refuses? He won't. Felix needs me more than I need him. He'll take whatever scraps I'm willing to give him. I set the tablet down carefully, my hands steady despite the rage building in my chest. 15 years of marriage reduced to scraps. My auto shop, the business I'd built from nothing, dismissed as little. And me? Apparently just a safety net while my wife went shopping for upgrades. The shop's landline rang, jolting me back to reality. Mrs. Henderson, probably wondering about her car. Rourde Auto Body, Felix speaking. Felix, dear, it's Margaret from next door. I saw Reina's car pull in about an hour ago, but she seemed to have someone with her. Just wanted to make sure everything was all right. Margaret Galvin, 73 years old and the neighborhood's unofficial surveillance system. Usually, her nosiness annoyed me. Tonight, it felt like Providence. Someone with her? A young man, nice car. They seemed quite friendly. I thanked Margaret and hung up, so Reina had brought Dylan to our house, our bed. The rage transformed into something colder, more focused. She wasn't just cheating, she was flaunting it. I grabbed the tablet and started screenshotting everything. Messages, calendar entries, location data. If Reina wanted to play games, she'd learn that this comfortable husband knew how to fight back. The front door of our house was visible from the shop's side window. I watched as Dylan's BMW pulled away around 12:30, followed by the flicker of bedroom lights going out. Reina, probably washing off the evidence before I came home. But I didn't go home that night. Instead, I sat in my office, printing out message threads and cross-referencing dates with Reina's work calendar. What I discovered was worse than simple adultery. 3 of Dylan's date nights with my wife coincided with major client presentations at Morrison & Associates. Presentations where Reina had supervisory authority over Dylan's work. 2 more dates happened during a high-profile merger case where both of them had access to confidential client information. Reina wasn't just cheating on me. She was violating professional ethics standards that could cost her license to practice law. I pulled up Morrison & Associates' employee handbook from their public website. Section 4.7. Romantic relationships between supervisors and subordinates must be disclosed to human resources within 30 days of commencement to avoid conflicts of interest. Section 8.3. Failure to disclose conflicts of interest may result in suspension or termination and referral to the State Bar Association. My wife, the brilliant attorney, had been too busy playing house with her boy toy to notice she was building a case against herself. Dawn crept through the shop windows as I finished compiling my evidence. 47 screenshots, 12 calendar exports, and a detailed timeline that painted a picture of systematic deception. I saved everything to a secure cloud folder and encrypted it with a password Reina would never guess. Backup plan. The house was quiet when I finally went inside. Reina's briefcase sat by the front door, her heels kicked off carelessly in the hallway. I could hear her breathing from the bedroom, deep, satisfied sleep. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the tablet. Part of me wanted to march upstairs and confront her immediately. But that would be emotional, messy, unpredictable. Reina had taught me something valuable over the years. The best victories come from preparation. Felix? You're up early. Reina appeared in the doorway, wearing her silk robe and that practiced smile she used on juries. Did you sleep in the shop again? Couldn't sleep. Thought I'd get an early start on the Henderson transmission. She poured herself coffee and sat across from me. Even first thing in the morning, she looked polished, controlled. It struck me how little I really knew this woman I'd married. I've been thinking about us, Felix, about our marriage. Here it comes, I thought. The proposal, the open relationship, the generous offer to let me remain as her backup plan. We've grown apart lately. Different interests, different goals. I think we need to have an honest conversation about what we both want. I'm listening. Reina sipped her coffee, choosing her words carefully. I love you, but I'm not sure I'm in love with you anymore. We married young, and I've changed. My career, my social circle, I've evolved, and I don't think you have. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. 15 years dismissed as a failure to evolve. What are you suggesting? I want us to consider an open arrangement. We stay married, keep the house, maintain our partnership, but we both get the freedom to explore other connections. I think it could save our marriage. I set down my coffee cup and looked at her directly. You want to keep me as a backup plan while you date other people. That's not how I'd phrase it. How would you phrase it? I'd call it mature adults acknowledging that monogamy isn't realistic for everyone. I deserve the freedom to explore my options, Felix, and you deserve honesty about what I need. The word deserve hung in the air between us. She deserved freedom. She deserved options. What did I deserve? And if I say no? Reina's smile turned cold. Then you'll regret it. You need me more than I need you, Felix. Your business, this house, your social standing in this town, it all depends on being married to me. Walk away, and you'll lose everything. I stood up slowly, my decision crystallizing. I need some time to think about this. Of course, take all the time you need, but don't take too long. I'm not getting any younger, and neither are my opportunities. I went upstairs and packed a bag while Reina showered. Clothes, toiletries, the tablet, and a flash drive containing my evidence files. When I came back down, she was in the kitchen making breakfast, humming softly. Going somewhere? The shop has a back room. I'll stay there while I think things over. She didn't try to stop me, didn't ask me to stay, just nodded and returned to her eggs. Felix, take the tablet if you want. I know you like to read the news on it. The offer sounded casual, generous even, but I caught the slight smile on her lips. She thought I was too stupid to find anything incriminating, too trusting to look. Thanks, I'll do that. I walked out of our house carrying everything I needed to destroy her career. And the beautiful part? She'd practically handed me the weapon herself. The back room of my auto shop wasn't much. A cot, a mini fridge, and a desk where I did paperwork. But it had something my house didn't have anymore: privacy. I spent the next 3 days diving deeper into Reina's digital life, and what I found was worse than I'd imagined. My wife wasn't just having an affair, she was running a masterclass in professional misconduct. The Morrison & Associates employee portal was still logged in on the tablet. Reina's credentials gave me access to case files, client communications, and internal memos. I wasn't hacking, just reading what she'd left open. Dylan Pace had been assigned to the Meridian Industries merger in March. Reina was the supervising partner. Their first romantic message was dated March 15th, 2 days after Dylan gained access to confidential financial projections worth $40 million. I printed out the timeline and spread it across my desk. Every date, every hotel booking, every client dinner that was actually a rendezvous. The pattern was clear. Their relationship had escalated alongside their professional collaboration, but the real smoking gun was in Reina's calendar notes, private entries she'd never intended anyone to see. D says Meridian CEO is considering backing out. Pillow talk advantage? Dylan's insights on Patterson case very helpful. Mixing business and pleasure has benefits. Must be more careful about scheduling. HR getting suspicious about our meetings. She wasn't just sleeping with her subordinate. She was using their relationship to gain insider information on cases. Information that had helped her win 3 major settlements in the past 6 months. My phone buzzed. Text from Reina. How's the thinking going? Dylan stopped by the house last night to discuss a case. Hope you don't mind? I stared at the message. She was taunting me now, rubbing my face in it. Dylan in our house again, probably in our bed again, while I slept on a cot surrounded by motor oil and tire irons. Time to start fighting back. Morrison & Associates had a strict ethics hotline, anonymous reporting for professional misconduct. I'd seen the posters in their lobby during Reina's office parties, but anonymous tips were easy to ignore. I needed something more direct. I spent the afternoon crafting a detailed report, dates, times, case numbers, and evidence of undisclosed conflicts of interest. I included screenshots of Reina's calendar notes and message threads, careful to redact only the most explicit romantic content. The professional misconduct was damning enough. The State Bar Association's website had clear guidelines about attorney discipline. Undisclosed conflicts could result in suspension or disbarment, especially when combined with misuse of confidential information. I downloaded the complaint forms and began filling them out. But first, I needed to cover my bases. I drove to the office supply store and bought a portable scanner. Back at the shop, I created hard copies of everything: messages, calendar entries, case files, ethics acknowledgments. I made 3 complete sets and stored them in separate locations. One in my shop safe, one in a safety deposit box, and one with my lawyer. Tom Morrison ran a small practice across town, mostly wills and real estate closings. He'd helped me set up the business incorporation for my shop. More importantly, he'd gone through his own messy divorce 5 years ago. Felix, good to see you. What brings you by? I handed him a sealed envelope. Tom, I need you to hold on to this for me. Don't open it unless something happens to me, or I specifically ask you to. He weighed the envelope in his hands. This wouldn't have anything to do with those rumors about Reina, would it? My stomach tightened. What rumors? Small town, Felix. People talk. Margaret Galvin mentioned seeing a young man visiting your house while you weren't there. And my secretary's daughter works at the Riverside Inn. She's seen Reina there with someone who isn't you. So it wasn't a secret anymore. Half the town probably knew my wife was cheating, and I was the last to find out. The humiliation burned, but it also gave me resolve. Just hold on to the envelope, Tom. Insurance policy. You got it. And Felix? If you need anything else, you know where to find me. I drove back to the shop, feeling lighter. The evidence was secure, the complaint forms were ready, and I had witnesses to Reina's behavior. But I wasn't ready to pull the trigger yet. I wanted to see how far she'd push this game. The answer came that evening. I was under the hood of a Chevy Silverado when I heard voices outside. Through the shop window, I saw Reina's Mercedes pull up to the curb. She got out, followed by Dylan. They stood on the sidewalk, talking and laughing like they owned the world. Told you he'd run away with his tail between his legs, Reina was saying. Felix doesn't have the spine to fight for anything. Dylan wrapped his arm around her waist. Are you sure he won't cause problems? Some of these blue-collar types can get violent when their pride is hurt. Felix? Violent? He's a teddy bear. The most aggressive thing he's ever done is change the oil in his truck too early. They kissed right there on the sidewalk in front of my business, where any of my customers could see. The message was clear. Reina wasn't just cheating, she was claiming territory. I wiped my hands on a rag and walked outside. Evening, Reina, Dylan. They broke apart, but neither looked embarrassed. Reina actually smiled. Felix, we were just in the neighborhood. Dylan wanted to see your little shop. Little shop. Like everything else in my life, diminished by her casual dismissal. Dylan extended his hand. Felix, right? I've heard so much about you. I ignored the handshake. I bet you have. Dylan was just telling me about his new apartment downtown, Reina continued. Very modern, very sophisticated, the kind of place where successful people live. Another dig. Our house was suburban, traditional, boring, not sophisticated enough for the new Reina. Sounds nice. You should spend more time there. Reina's smile faltered slightly. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about our conversation the other day. Have you made a decision about our arrangement? I have. And? I looked at both of them, my wife of 15 years and her boy toy, standing in front of my business like they were already planning its funeral. I decline your generous offer. Reina's face went cold. I see. And what exactly do you think you're going to do instead? I'm going to file for divorce. Dylan shifted uncomfortably, but Reina just laughed. Actually laughed, like I'd told a joke. Felix, you can't afford to divorce me. Your business barely breaks even. This house, it's in my name. Your truck, financed through my credit. You'll lose everything and end up in some trailer park fixing lawnmowers for grocery money. Maybe, but I'll have my self-respect. Self-respect doesn't pay the bills. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to that courtroom tone she used to intimidate witnesses. You're going to regret this decision, Felix. I'm offering you a way to save face, to keep your life intact while I get what I need. Walk away from that offer, and I'll make sure you lose everything. Is that a threat? It's a promise. I looked at Dylan, who was trying to disappear into the sidewalk. What about you, Romeo? You comfortable with threatening people's livelihoods over your girlfriend's midlife crisis? Hey man, I'm just what? Just sleeping with another man's wife? Just helping her threaten his business? Just standing there like a coward while she does your dirty work? Dylan's face flushed red. You don't know anything about our relationship. I know you're 28 years old, driving a car your daddy bought you, and sleeping with your boss. That about cover it? Felix, enough. Reina grabbed Dylan's arm. We're leaving, but this conversation isn't over. Yes, it is. They got back in the Mercedes and drove away, leaving me standing on the sidewalk in front of my little shop. But I wasn't the same man who'd discovered those text messages a week ago. That man would have gone inside and punched a wall. This man went inside and opened his laptop. The ethics complaint was submitted at 11:47 p.m. The State Bar Association's automated response promised a review within 10 business days. I printed the confirmation email and added it to my evidence file. Then I sent a copy of everything to Morrison & Associates Compliance Department. The subject line read, "Confidential Ethics Violation Report. Urgent Review Required." I hit send and went to bed on my cot, sleeping better than I had in months. Tomorrow, Reina would learn that her backup plan had some teeth of his own. I was grinding brake pads when my phone rang the next morning. Unknown number, but I recognized the voice immediately. "Felix, this is James Morrison from Morrison & Associates. I need to speak with you immediately." James Morrison, senior partner and Reina's boss, the man who'd hired her 8 years ago and promoted her to partner track last year. His voice sounded strained. "What can I do for you, Mr. Morrison?" "We need to meet. Today. There are some serious allegations that have come to our attention, and I need to understand the source of this information." "What kind of allegations?" "I think you know. Can you be at my office at 2 o'clock? I looked at the clock. 10:30 a.m. That gave me time to shower and review my files one more time. "I'll be there." Morrison & Associates occupied the top 3 floors of the Hartwell building downtown. Glass and steel, all sharp angles and intimidating architecture. I'd been there dozens of times for Reina's office parties, always feeling like an outsider in my best suit among people who wore $1,000 outfits like casual wear. Today felt different. Today, I belonged here. James Morrison was 65, gray-haired, and built like a former football player gone soft around the edges. His office overlooked the river, with law books lining every wall and expensive art hanging between them. He gestured to a chair across from his massive oak desk. "Felix, I'll get straight to the point. We received some disturbing information about Reina and one of our junior associates. Information that suggests serious professional misconduct." "I see. The question is, where did this information come from?" I leaned back in the chair. "Does it matter? If the information is accurate, shouldn't that be your primary concern?" Morrison's eyes narrowed. "Are you admitting you sent this report?" "I'm not admitting anything, but I'm curious. Have you verified the accuracy of the allegations?" "We've begun an internal investigation. The evidence appears substantial." "Then you have your answer." Morrison stood up and walked to the window, his hands clasped behind his back. "Felix, I've known Reina for 8 years. She's one of our most promising attorneys. These allegations could destroy her career." "That's unfortunate." He turned around. "You don't understand. If this becomes public, it doesn't just hurt Reina. It hurts the firm. It hurts our reputation with clients. It hurts everyone who works here." "Including Dylan?" Morrison's face darkened. "Dylan Pace is a different matter. If these allegations are true, his employment here is finished. But Reina, there might be ways to handle this quietly, internally." I stood up. "Are you asking me to withdraw the complaint?" "I'm asking you to consider the consequences, for everyone involved." "I have considered them." "Have you considered that Reina will fight back? That she'll use every legal tool at her disposal to protect herself? That this could get very ugly for you personally?" The threat was subtle but clear. Reina had resources, connections, legal expertise. I was just a mechanic with a high school education and a failing marriage. "Mr. Morrison, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "How long have you known about Reina and Dylan?" Morrison's pause told me everything. "I don't know what you mean." "The hotel receipts go back 6 months. The calendar conflicts, the case collaborations, the after-hours meetings. You're telling me nobody noticed?" "We trust our attorneys to maintain professional boundaries. Even when those boundaries affect case outcomes? Even when confidential client information gets shared during pillow talk?" Morrison's face went pale. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out my phone and opened the screenshot folder. March 18th. Reina's calendar note. Dylan's insights on Patterson case very helpful. Mixing business and pleasure has benefits. Want to see more? Those are private communications. How did you obtain them? From the family tablet, the one Reina syncs with all her devices, the one she told me to take when I moved out. Morrison sat down heavily. This is worse than I thought. It gets worse. The Meridian merger? Dylan had access to confidential financial projections. Reina used information from their romantic conversations to structure her negotiation strategy. That's not just an ethics violation, it's potential malpractice. Jesus Christ. Morrison rubbed his forehead. Felix, what do you want? Money? A settlement? What's it going to take to make this go away? I want my wife to face the consequences of her actions. That's not an answer. Everyone wants something. Name your price. I stood up and walked to the door. Mr. Morrison, I think you've misunderstood the situation. This isn't about money. This is about accountability. Felix, wait. I turned back. Yes. Reina doesn't know about our conversation. I'd appreciate it if you kept it that way. Of course. Professional discretion. I left Morrison's office feeling like I'd just won the first round of a boxing match. The firm was panicking, which meant my evidence was solid. But Morrison was right about one thing. Reina would fight back. I didn't have to wait long. My phone buzzed as I reached the parking garage. Text message from an unknown number. Check your email. R. The email was waiting when I got back to the shop. No subject line, just a PDF attachment labeled Divorce, Settlement, Proposal, PDF. Reina wasn't wasting time. The document was 12 pages of legal language that basically said I could keep my tools and my truck, and she'd keep everything else. The house, the savings accounts, her retirement fund, even the joint checking account, all hers. But the real kicker was on page 8, a clause requiring me to sign a non-disclosure agreement about any alleged marital misconduct and to withdraw any pending complaints or legal actions against Reina or her associates. She was trying to buy my silence with my own money. My phone rang. Reina. Did you get my email? I got it. Those are generous terms, Felix. More generous than you deserve after the stunt you pulled today. What stunt? Don't play dumb. I know you went to Morrison's office. I know you're the one who sent that report to compliance. And I know you think you're very clever. I think I'm adequately motivated. You're motivated to destroy your own life. Do you have any idea what you've started? The firm has lawyers who specialize in making problems disappear. They can tie you up in court for years. They can sue you for defamation, invasion of privacy, theft of confidential information. They can make sure you never work in this town again. They can try. Felix, I'm offering you one last chance to be smart about this. Sign the settlement, withdraw your complaints, and walk away with something. Keep playing games, and you'll lose everything. I've already lost everything that mattered. You haven't lost anything yet, but you will. The line went quiet for a long moment. Reina, can I ask you something? What? Do you love him? Another pause. That's not relevant. It is to me. Fine. Yes, I love him. Dylan makes me feel alive in ways you never could. He's ambitious, sophisticated, going places. He doesn't smell like motor oil, and he doesn't spend his evenings watching baseball in his underwear. The casual cruelty of it hit me like a punch to the gut. 15 years of marriage, and this was how she really saw me. Then you should be with him. I plan to be. The question is whether you're going to make this easy or hard. Hard. Definitely hard. You'll regret that choice. I already regret a lot of things. What's one more? She hung up without another word. I sat in my office, staring at the divorce papers. Reina was right about one thing. She had resources I didn't have. Lawyers, money, connections. But she'd made a crucial mistake. She'd underestimated how much damage a motivated mechanic could do with the right tools. I opened my laptop and began typing a new email. This one was addressed to the Meridian Industries General Counsel, with copies to the Patterson case opposing counsel and the State Bar Association's disciplinary board. The subject line read, "Evidence of attorney misconduct affecting your legal matters." If Reina wanted to play hardball, she was about to learn that some games have no winners, only survivors. The next morning brought 3 phone calls that changed everything. The first came at 7:30 a.m. Tom Morrison, my attorney. "Felix, you need to get down here immediately. I've got reporters calling, asking about some ethics complaint involving your wife. This thing is going public." The second call came 10 minutes later. Margaret Galvin, my neighbor. "Felix, dear, there are news vans parked outside your house. Reina left about an hour ago with suitcases, looked quite upset." The third call was from a number I didn't recognize. "Mr. Rourde, this is Patricia Chen from Channel 7 News. We're investigating allegations of professional misconduct at Morrison and Associates. Would you be willing to comment on the record about your wife's relationship with Dylan Pace?" I hung up without answering, but the message was clear. The story was out there, spreading like wildfire through the local legal community. Reina's carefully constructed professional image was about to become front-page news. My phone buzzed with a text from Dylan. "We need to talk. Meet me at Riverside Diner in an hour. Come alone." Interesting. The boy toy wanted a face-to-face conversation. This should be entertaining. Riverside Diner sat on the edge of downtown, the kind of place where truckers and construction workers grabbed coffee before dawn shifts. Not exactly Dylan's usual scene. I found him in a back booth, looking like he hadn't slept in days. "Felix, thanks for coming." I slid into the opposite seat. "What's on your mind, Dylan?" "This needs to stop. The media attention, the investigation, it's gotten out of hand." "Has it? Look, I know you're angry about Reina and me. I get it. But you're destroying innocent people here." "Innocent people?" Dylan leaned forward. "I could lose my law license over this. My career, my future, gone. And for what? Because your wife fell out of love with you?" I signaled the waitress for coffee. "Dylan, let me explain something to you. This isn't about love. This is about consequences." "What consequences?" "We're 2 adults who developed feelings for each other. It happens. You're 2 attorneys who violated professional ethics standards while handling confidential client information. That's not romance. That's malpractice." Dylan's face flushed. "Those allegations are exaggerated. We never compromised any cases." I pulled out my phone and opened the screenshot folder. March 20th. Reina's note. "Dylan says Meridian CEO having second thoughts about merger terms. Adjust strategy accordingly." March 21st. "You had a private dinner with the Meridian legal team." March 22nd. "Reina restructured the entire deal based on inside information you provided." We didn't plan it that way." "Doesn't matter. The result is the same. Reina used information from your relationship to gain advantage in a $40 million merger. That's grounds for disbarment." Dylan stared at his untouched coffee. "What do you want? Money? I can pay you. My family has resources." "Your family? Right, Daddy's money. I can make this worth your while. Name a figure." I leaned back and studied him. 28 years old, handsome in that prep school way, probably never faced real consequences for anything in his life. The kind of man who thought every problem could be solved with a check. "Dylan, you want to know what I want?" "Yes." "I want you to understand something. For 15 years, I got up every morning and went to work. I built a business from nothing. I paid my taxes, helped my neighbors, tried to be a good husband, and my wife decided I wasn't good enough anymore." "Felix, I'm not finished. She didn't just leave me, she humiliated me, made me a joke in my own town, brought you into my house, into my bed, and laughed about how stupid I was for not noticing." Dylan shifted uncomfortably. "I'm sorry about that. Really, but... So here's what I want, Dylan. I want both of you to face the same humiliation I faced. I want your careers destroyed the way you destroyed my marriage. I want you to lose everything you think makes you special. That's vindictive. Yes, it is. Dylan stood up abruptly. You're making a mistake, Felix. Reina has connections you can't imagine. People who owe her favors. She can make your life very difficult. She already has. This isn't over. No, it's not. Dylan left without paying for his coffee. I sat there for another hour, watching the morning news on the diner's television. The story was the lead item on Channel 7's legal segment. Local law firm under investigation for ethics violations. They didn't name Reina specifically, but anyone in the legal community would know exactly who they were talking about. Morrison and Associates was a small firm. There weren't many female partners who supervised junior associates. My phone rang. Reina, of course. You bastard. You absolute bastard. Good morning to you, too. Do you have any idea what you've done? My career is ruined. 15 years of work, destroyed because you couldn't handle being replaced by a better man. Where are you calling from? That's none of your business. Hotel? Dylan's apartment? Your office? Oh, wait. Do you still have an office? Silence. Reina, you still there? Morrison put me on administrative leave pending the investigation. Happy now? Getting there. This isn't over, Felix. I have lawyers looking into your little evidence collection, breaking into private communications, theft of confidential information. You've committed crimes here. Have I? The tablet was mine, too. Joint property. Everything I accessed was through your logged-in accounts. I never hacked anything, never stole anything. Just read what you left open. You manipulated, I documented. There's a difference. My lawyers will find something. They always do. Maybe. But by then, the damage will be done. Your reputation, your career, your precious professional image, all gone. Just like my marriage. You're going to regret this. You keep saying that. But you know what? I don't think I will. I hung up and ordered another coffee. The diner was filling up with the lunch crowd. Contractors, delivery drivers, people who worked with their hands for a living. My people. The kind of folks Reina looked down on as beneath her evolved sensibilities. My phone buzzed with a text from Tom Morrison. State bar investigation officially opened. Meridian Industries filed complaint with firm. Need to meet ASAP. The wheels were turning faster now. Once the state bar got involved, there was no putting the genie back in the bottle. Reina's career was effectively over, even if the formal proceedings took months. But I wasn't done yet. I drove to the Morrison and Associates building and parked across the street. Around 2 o'clock, Dylan emerged from the parking garage, carrying a cardboard box. Personal items from his office. He'd been fired. He loaded the box into his BMW and sat there for several minutes, probably making phone calls, damage control, resume updates, explanations to family and friends about why his promising legal career had just imploded. At 3:15, Reina appeared. She moved quickly, head down, avoiding eye contact with anyone. Her Mercedes was parked in the visitor section, no longer entitled to the partner spaces she'd worked years to earn. She drove past my truck without noticing me, probably heading to whatever hotel she was staying at now. The house was still technically hers, but the media attention made it uninhabitable. Another consequence she hadn't anticipated. My phone rang. James Morrison. Felix, we need to talk. I'm listening. Not over the phone. Can you come to my office? I'm across the street. Be right up. Morrison looked like he'd aged 10 years since our last meeting. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his tie askew. The confident senior partner had been replaced by a man watching his firm's reputation crumble in real time. The office itself felt different too quiet, too careful. The view from his corner window no longer projected power so much as exposure, the city stretching out like an audience waiting for a verdict. Morrison didn't bother offering me a seat this time. He just stood there, hands braced on the back of a leather chair as if he needed the support. Felix, I'll get straight to the point. We're prepared to offer you a substantial settlement to make this go away. His voice carried the faintest tremor, quickly smoothed over by years of practiced composure. How substantial? $200,000, cash, in exchange for a signed agreement that you'll withdraw all complaints and refrain from speaking to the media. The number hung between us, heavy and deliberate. I whistled softly. That's a lot of money. It's cheaper than the lawsuits we're facing. Meridian is threatening to sue for malpractice. Patterson's opposing counsel is demanding sanctions. The state bar investigation could take years to resolve. Each sentence sounded like another crack in the foundation, a litany of consequences he could no longer control. What about Reina and Dylan? Morrison's jaw tightened. They're no longer employed by this firm. Their careers are finished. Isn't that enough? I leaned back in the chair I'd taken without asking, letting the silence stretch just long enough to be uncomfortable. I pretended to consider the offer, tapping a finger lightly against my knee. 200,000. That would set me up pretty well. New equipment for the shop. Maybe expand into custom work. His shoulders eased a fraction, relief flickering across his face. Exactly. You could rebuild your life, move on from all this. There's just one problem. His eyes sharpened. What's that? I don't want to move on. Morrison's face fell. The color drained from it, leaving behind something raw and exposed. Felix, be reasonable. You've won. Reina's career is over. Dylan will never practice law again. What more do you want? I want them to face criminal charges. He blinked, genuinely startled. Criminal charges? Fraud, conspiracy, misuse of confidential information. I've been reading up on federal statutes regarding attorney misconduct. Some of this could be prosecuted under RICO. The word landed like a dropped glass. Morrison took a step back, as if physical distance might soften its impact. You're talking about destroying lives here. They destroyed mine first. He turned away from me and walked to the window, clasping his hands behind his back. The silence stretched again, thicker this time. You know, Felix, I've been practicing law for 30 years. I've seen a lot of ugly divorces, a lot of vindictive behavior. But this is something else. This is justice. This is revenge. Sometimes they're the same thing. Morrison turned back to me, his expression shifting gears once more. What if I told you that Reina is willing to give you everything? The house, the savings, even her retirement accounts. A complete financial surrender. The offer was almost pleading now, desperation stripped of its polish. I'd say it's too late for that. Why? I stood up and straightened my jacket, feeling the decision settle fully into place. Because this was never about money, Mr. Morrison. This was about respect, and the time for buying my respect has passed. I didn't wait for his response. I left Morrison's office knowing I'd crossed a line. The settlement offer proved they were desperate, which meant my evidence was even more damaging than I'd realized. But it also meant the stakes were getting higher. The hallway outside felt longer than before, the murmurs behind closed doors sharper, more suspicious. Reina had threatened to make my life difficult. Now, she'd have nothing left to lose. The real war was just beginning. 3 days after rejecting Morrison's settlement offer, I learned what Reina meant by making my life difficult. I arrived at my shop Monday morning to find 2 police cruisers parked outside. Detective Ray Kowalski was waiting by the front door, holding a search warrant. Morning, Felix. We need to take a look around. Ray and I had gone to high school together. He'd been a decent linebacker. I'd been a decent boxer. We'd shared beers and war stories over the years. Today, he looked uncomfortable. What's this about, Ray? Complaint filed against you. Harassment, stalking, computer crimes. We need to search your office and any computers you might have. Computer crimes? Unauthorized access to private communications. theft of confidential information. The complainant says you hacked into her email and stole attorney-client privilege documents. I handed him the shop keys. The complainant being my wife? Ex-wife, apparently. She filed for divorce yesterday. Also filed for a restraining order. Restraining order? Ray pulled out a folded document. Temporary order of protection. You're not allowed within 500 feet of Reina Caldwell, Dylan Pace, or the Morrison & Associates building. Violation is a felony. I read through the order. Reina had claimed I was escalating a pattern of harassment and intimidation that made her fear for her physical safety. She'd included screenshots of my text messages, taken out of context to sound threatening. Ray, you know this is garbage, right? What I know doesn't matter. What matters is what I can prove. He gestured to his officers. We'll try to make this quick. They spent 2 hours going through my office, photographing everything, seizing my laptop and desktop computer. They found my evidence files, of course. I'd left them right on the desk. Felix, these documents, where did you get them? Family tablet, joint property. Reina told me to take it when I moved out. And you used it to access her private communications? I used it to access our shared accounts. Everything was already logged in. I never broke any passwords or hacked anything. Ray looked through the printed emails and calendar entries. This is pretty detailed stuff. Professional communications, case files. All accessed through accounts she left open on our shared device. No different than reading a letter she left on the kitchen table. Her lawyers might see it differently. Her lawyers are trying to distract from the ethics violations. This is damage control, not legitimate law enforcement. Ray finished his report and handed me a receipt for the seized items. Felix, I've got to ask, what's your end game here? You've destroyed her career, cost her job, made her a pariah in the legal community. When does it end? When she faces real consequences. These aren't real consequences. These are professional consequences. I want criminal charges. I want her to understand what it feels like to lose everything. Ray shook his head. You're walking a dangerous line, buddy. Restraining order violations are serious business, and if her lawyers can make any of these computer crime charges stick, they can't. I know what I did and didn't do. Just be careful. Reina's got resources and she's using them. After the police left, I sat in my empty office, staring at the spaces where my computers used to be. Reina was escalating, using the legal system as a weapon, but she'd made a tactical error. The restraining order was based on false allegations. The computer crime complaint was frivolous, and now everything was on the record, subject to discovery and cross-examination. I called Tom Morrison. Tom, I need you to file a motion to dismiss the restraining order. Also, I want to counter-sue for abuse of process and malicious prosecution. Felix, that's going to be expensive and risky. If we lose, we won't lose. I've got evidence that proves her allegations are false. And once we get into discovery, I can subpoena all her communications with Dylan, her lawyers, everyone involved in this conspiracy. Conspiracy? Think about it, Tom. She files ethics violations complaints against herself? No. Someone advised her to file these bogus criminal charges as a distraction. Someone helped her craft that restraining order application. I want to know who. That's a serious accusation. It's about to get more serious. I spent the afternoon at the public library, using their computers to research federal statutes on conspiracy and racketeering. What I found was interesting. If Reina and her lawyers had conspired to file false criminal charges as part of a pattern of harassment that could constitute wire fraud under federal law, if they'd used email or phone calls to coordinate their strategy, that created a paper trail. More importantly, federal charges couldn't be dismissed with settlements or political pressure. The FBI didn't care about Morrison & Associates' reputation or Reina's connections. I composed a detailed letter to the FBI's white-collar crime unit, outlining the conspiracy allegations and requesting a federal investigation. I included copies of all my evidence, plus the timeline showing how the criminal charges were filed immediately after I rejected the settlement offer. The letter went out certified mail that evening. Tuesday morning brought another surprise. I was having coffee at the diner when Dylan Pace walked in, looking like he hadn't slept in a week. "Felix, we need to talk." I thought we already did that. "Things have changed." He sat down across from me. "Reina's lawyers want to destroy you, completely. They're talking about civil suits, criminal charges, even going after your business license. And you're here to warn me out of the goodness of your heart?" Dylan's hands were shaking slightly. "I'm here because I'm scared. This whole thing has gotten out of control." "Has it?" "The FBI contacted me yesterday. They want to interview me about conspiracy charges. Federal conspiracy charges, Felix. That's prison time." I sipped my coffee. "Interesting. You did this. You filed a federal complaint." "Did I?" "Reina thinks we can fight it. She says her lawyers can make it go away, but I'm not so sure." "Smart man." Dylan leaned forward. "What do you want? Really? Name it, and I'll make it happen. I want the truth." "What truth?" "I want you to testify about everything. The affair, the ethics violations, the conspiracy to file false charges. I want you to tell the FBI exactly how this whole thing went down." "I can't do that. It would implicate me in—" "Dylan, you're already implicated. The question is whether you want to be a witness or a defendant." He stared at his hands. "If I cooperate, what happens to me?" "Probably immunity in exchange for testimony. The FBI wants the big fish, not the small fry." "And if I don't?" "Then you go down with the ship." Dylan was quiet for a long moment. "She used me, didn't she? Reina, this was never about love." "What do you think?" "I think I was an idiot. A convenient idiot with access to case files and client information. Now you're getting somewhere. She's going to destroy me either way. If I testify, I'm a traitor. If I don't, I'm a conspirator. Welcome to the real world, Dylan. Sometimes there are no good choices." He stood up abruptly. "I need to think about this." "Don't think too long. Federal prosecutors don't wait forever." Dylan left without another word. I finished my coffee and drove to Tom Morrison's office. The motion to dismiss the restraining order was ready for filing, along with our countersuit. "Felix, I have to warn you. This is going to get ugly. Reina's legal team is top tier. They're going to come at you with everything they've got. Let them come. They might try to destroy your reputation, your business, your personal life. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about the question. 6 months ago, I was a happily married mechanic who trusted his wife and believed in playing by the rules. That man was gone, replaced by someone harder, more cynical, more willing to fight dirty. Tom, they already destroyed everything I cared about. What else can they take? Your freedom. If any of these charges stick, they won't stick, because they're lies, and I can prove it. And if you're wrong, I stood up and shook his hand. Then I'll go down swinging. That evening, I sat in my empty shop, surrounded by the tools and machinery that represented 30 years of honest work. Tomorrow, the real battle would begin. Reina had escalated this into a legal war, using every weapon at her disposal. But she'd forgotten something important about mechanics. We know how to take things apart and put them back together. And sometimes, taking something apart is exactly what it needs. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "FBI wants to meet tomorrow, 2 p.m., Federal Building. Come alone. D." Dylan had made his choice. Now it was time to finish what Reina had started. The backup plan was about to become the only plan that mattered. The FBI field office occupied 3 floors of the Federal Building downtown. Agent Sarah Martinez was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35, with the kind of sharp eyes that missed nothing. She led me to a small conference room where Dylan Pace sat at a metal table, looking like he was about to be executed. "Mr. Rourde, thank you for coming. Mr. Pace has been very helpful in explaining the situation." I took a seat across from Dylan. He wouldn't meet my eyes. What kind of help has he provided? Agent Martinez opened a thick file folder. Mr. Pace has agreed to cooperate fully in our investigation of conspiracy charges against Reina Caldwell and her legal team. In exchange, he'll receive immunity from prosecution. Smart choice. Dylan finally looked up. Felix, I want you to know, I never intended for things to go this far. But they did. The false charges, the restraining order, the plan to destroy your business, that was all Reina and her lawyers. I just wanted the ethics investigation to go away. Agent Martinez pulled out a digital recorder. Mr. Pace, would you mind repeating for Mr. Rourde what you told us about the conspiracy? Dylan's voice was barely above a whisper. After you filed the ethics complaint, Reina panicked. She hired a team of lawyers from Boston, expensive ones who specialize in making problems disappear. They advised her to go on the offensive. How so? File criminal charges against you, get a restraining order, claim you were harassing and threatening her. The idea was to make you look like a vindictive ex-husband whose evidence couldn't be trusted. Whose idea was the computer crime angle? Her lead attorney, Marcus Webb. He said if they could prove you illegally accessed her communications, everything you found would be inadmissible in court. I looked at Agent Martinez. Except I didn't illegally access anything. We know. Our computer forensics team examined the devices seized from your shop. Everything you accessed was through legitimate shared accounts. No hacking, no unauthorized entry. So the charges are bogus. Completely. Which makes them part of a conspiracy to obstruct justice. Dylan continued his confession. The plan was to bury you in legal fees and criminal charges while Reina negotiated a quiet settlement with Morrison and Associates. She figured you'd eventually give up and take whatever deal they offered. What changed? You filed the federal complaint. Suddenly this wasn't just about state ethics violations, it was about federal conspiracy charges. That's when everyone started panicking. Agent Martinez leaned forward. Mr. Rourde, we've been monitoring communications between Ms. Caldwell and her legal team. The conspiracy is well documented. Phone calls, emails, strategy sessions, all of it recorded. What happens now? Now we make arrests. Ms. Caldwell, her attorney Marcus Webb, and 2 associates who helped plan the false charges. Federal conspiracy charges carry serious prison time. I felt a strange sense of completion. 6 months ago, I'd been a naive husband who thought marriage meant something. Today, I was watching my wife's life implode in real time. When? This afternoon. We wanted to give you advance notice in case there's any media attention. There was media attention. By 5 o'clock, every local news station was running footage of Reina being led away in handcuffs from her hotel. The charges were serious. Conspiracy to obstruct justice, filing false police reports, abuse of process. Marcus Webb, the high-powered attorney she'd hired to destroy me, was arrested at his Boston office. The other conspirators were picked up at various locations around the city. I watched the news coverage from my shop, feeling oddly detached from the whole spectacle. The woman on television being charged with federal crimes didn't look like the Reina I'd married 15 years ago. That woman had been ambitious, but honest, driven, but ethical. This woman was a stranger. My phone rang constantly. Reporters wanting comments, neighbors asking questions, old friends expressing shock and support. I ignored most of the calls, but one number caught my attention. James Morrison. Felix, I assume you've seen the news. Hard to miss. I want you to know, the firm had no knowledge of Reina's conspiracy. We would never have approved such tactics. I know. Your victims, too. The partners met this afternoon. We'd like to offer you a formal apology and a substantial settlement for the harassment you've endured. How substantial? $500,000, plus a public statement acknowledging that your ethics complaint was legitimate and necessary. I considered the offer. $500,000 would set me up for life, allow me to expand my business, maybe even retire early. But money had never been the point. Mr. Morrison, I appreciate the gesture, but I don't want your money. What do you want? I want you to implement new policies to prevent this from happening again. Mandatory ethics training, stronger oversight of attorney relationships, zero tolerance for conflicts of interest. Done. Anything else? I want you to establish a whistleblower fund, anonymous reporting for ethics violations, with financial incentives for people who come forward. That's actually a very good idea. And I want it named after someone who deserves recognition for doing the right thing. Who did you have in mind? Margaret Galvin, my neighbor. She's the one who first noticed something was wrong and had the courage to tell me about it. Morrison chuckled. The Galvin Ethics Fund. I like it. We talked for another few minutes about implementation details. When I hung up, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Satisfaction. Not revenge, not vindication. Just the quiet satisfaction of a job well done. My phone buzzed with a text from Dylan. Thank you for giving me a chance to do the right thing. I'm leaving town tomorrow, starting over somewhere else. I hope you can forgive me someday. I typed back. Already forgiven. Good luck. And I meant it. Dylan had been weak, not evil. He'd made terrible choices, but he'd also found the courage to correct them when it mattered. That counted for something. The shop felt different that evening. Quieter, but not empty. Peaceful, but not defeated. I'd lost a marriage, but I'd found something more valuable. Self-respect. I was cleaning up my workbench when Tom Morrison arrived with a bottle of whiskey and 2 glasses. Figured you might want to celebrate. What are we celebrating? Justice, victory, the fact that good guys sometimes win. We sat in my office sharing the whiskey and watching the late news coverage. The story had national attention now, a small-town corruption scandal involving lawyers, adultery, and federal conspiracy charges. Felix, can I ask you something? Shoot. Do you regret any of it? The investigation, the charges, watching Reina's life fall apart? I thought about the question. Did I regret destroying my wife's career? Did I regret sending her to federal prison? Did I regret becoming the kind of man who could orchestrate someone's complete downfall? No, I said finally. I don't regret it. Why not? Because she made a choice. She chose to betray our marriage, violate her professional ethics, and then try to destroy me when I fought back. Every consequence she's facing is the result of her own decisions. And Dylan? Dylan made different choices when it mattered. He chose to cooperate, to tell the truth, to accept responsibility. That's why he gets a second chance. Tom poured another round. What's next for you? I'm going to rebuild the business, my reputation, my life, all of it. Any thoughts about dating? Getting back out there? I laughed. Tom, 6 months ago I thought I knew what love looked like. Turns out I was completely wrong. I think I'll take some time to figure out who I am before I try to figure out who I want to be with. Smart approach. We finished the bottle as the news cycle moved on to other stories. By midnight, the media trucks were gone, the reporters had filed their stories, and my small town was quiet again. I locked up the shop and walked to my truck. Tomorrow I'd start the process of moving back into my house. Reina's arrest had voided the restraining order, and her impending prison sentence made the divorce proceedings academic. But tonight, I just wanted to drive, to feel the engine humming beneath me, to see the familiar streets of the town where I'd built my life, to remember what it felt like to be at peace with my choices. I'd been Reina's backup plan for 15 years. Now, finally, I was my own first priority. The road stretched ahead, dark but welcoming. Behind me, the lights of my shop grew smaller in the rearview mirror, not disappearing, just waiting for my return. Some endings are really beginnings, some losses are actually victories, and sometimes the backup plan turns out to be the only plan that ever mattered. I drove home through the quiet streets of my town, past the houses where my neighbors slept peacefully, past the businesses where honest people made honest livings, past the life I'd almost lost and had somehow managed to save. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new choices. But tonight, for the first time in months, I was exactly where I belonged. The backup plan was complete.